I ask him questions on how things went chronologically. What year did you graduate from high school?
1943, and I got a deferment 1 year so I could graduate from high school since I was over the age limit for entering the service.
What was the age for entering?
Well, I was 18.
You had to get the deferment too?
Yeah, because I was a little older for my class, so I had to get the deferment, so I finished, and I was drafted right the same month after when I got out of high school.
So you would have gone into the service in June of 1943?
Yep.
And where did you first go?
We were sent to Fort Benjamin Harrison down near Indianapolis. There, we were chosen to go to certain parts of the service, and I happened to be following the line of the Air Force. So there, I was sent on to Miami Beach.
How did they determine that you would go into the Air Force?
I think it was basically who they needed the most at that time, and I think we needed more personnel in the Air Force.
Were there tests involved to see which direction you would go as far as which service?
Basically, just as long as we had good vision was the main thing. Hearing, of course.
How long were you at Harrison in Indianapolis?
Just a few days before I was sent to Miami.
How did you go to Miami?
Well, they took us by train, which took quite a while. Everything was sent by train at that time.
Now, at that time, you didn't have your final crew put together or anything?
Oh no, we went for basic training at Miami Beach, and we stayed in some of the hotels around there, but we had to run the steps and everything. So it was during the summer months, so it was really hot. I guess it turned me against Florida.
In Miami, did you meet some of your crew members then?
No, this was just basic training, and I had not many crew members for several months.
So Miami was just a place where they brought in recruits from all over the country?
From all over the country for train for the Air Force. Just basic training type thing. Then you were sent to specialist school after that.
How long, back to the train ride from Indianapolis to Miami, how long did that take?
I bet we were 3 days getting down there because they sent trains, they put you in a sideline for a while, and they send you a little farther, and boy, it took a long while.
So there's a lot of, you would run for a while, then you would wait until you got...
They had other things that were more important, transportation.
Did you reach Miami, and what month of the year would that have been?
Oh, that would probably have been July 1943.
What was involved in your basic training?
Oh, that's pretty much basic the same. You go and do your calisthenics. And one thing that I didn't like too well, we had a calisthenics along the beach, and we were forced to go in the ocean, the salt water, then come out and do those. And of course, we couldn't bathe until that evening, so you had salt water on you all day. So that was kind of discouraging. And then we had some other training periods that we had there, other than just calisthenics. We had 10-mile marches and different things like that also. We were there about 3 months, I believe.
Where were the marches? Inland or
the beach? The beach. They went from one end of the beach to the other, about 10 miles.
We're in Miami. Before we get into that a lot, what you did there, what were the conditions like in Miami as far as the weather and so forth?
Miami was very hot. It was always 90 in the 90s during the day and about mid-80s during the night. So we broke out in heat rash. There wasn't much we could do about it. We just kind of suffered through it.
So you were staying in hotels down there?
Yeah, 6 stories up. We would run up and down the stairs for about 10 times a day. Different things.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was very enjoyable. We didn't have any air or anything in there. They put 4 men in one little room. It was pretty congested.
So you were in bunks, or?
Yeah, they had bunks, 2 bunk beds.
You remember any of the guys you were with?
No, I don't remember any.
They were from all over the country.
I just remembered one redheaded guy. I can't remember his name, but he couldn't take the sun, and his whole body just blistered up in huge blisters. He had a terrible time. We were sent to different school activity down there to determine what school we would be sent to or what training, like radio operator or mechanical or anything like that. So I was not suited for radio, so they sent me to mechanical school.
They gave you tests to determine your proficiency in these things?
Yeah, I was best suited for that. So.
Well, how did they determine these? What type of tests did they put you up to?
Well, most of them were just written and a hearing test and that type of thing there. And mechanically, what you could do with your hands, like putting certain things together, required an amount of time, that type of thing.
What other training did you go through in basic training? The typical physical conditioning?
Basically, that was about it. But, just repeat your same type of thing all the time.
And these were people who were determined to be going into the Air Corps of the Army?
Yeah, we were all in the Air Corps. Everybody down there was connected to the Air Force.
Did you have any jellyfish problems in the ocean?
So we had, that was another problem we had when we went in for these quick dips. We had the jellyfish stings. And also, German U-boats were out in that area at that time too. There was some having spotted along Florida. We, of course, had not seen any.
But there were some reported as being off the coast of Florida. And this was July of 1943. How long were you in Miami?
September, I was sent to my next school in Amarillo, Texas. And it took us about 3 days to get there by train. I think it's a long while.
The train would have taken you out of Florida through the Gulf states and for 3 days to Amarillo.
So, got there sometime in September, I think it was. That was to be a 6-month course in this particular school.
For what was the school for again?
It's a mechanic school. So I was being trained to be a flight engineer in a plane. That's what it was.
Okay. That was the school to train you for flight engineering.
Yeah. So I went through quite a bit of different types of training. And it involved there again installing parts of the engines and all that type of thing together, and tearing down certain piece of equipment and putting it together, blindfolded, and different things like that.
So the engines you were tearing down were those of B-17?
Yeah, they were B-17. They had B-17s there, the engines to work on. But most of it was classroom training, more so than that. Of course, we went through the same calisthenics and that type of training. You always had that wherever you were.
That kept you in good physical condition.
Supposedly.
Of
course, I played basketball on a team there. It was in the winter months, so I kept pretty physically good shape anyway. So.
Well, that was one of my next questions. What did you do in the off time in Amarillo, Texas?
That was one of my pastimes, but I went to Amarillo on 2 or 3 different occasions. Wasn't much going on there. A lot of the fellows have a tendency to go out drinking and that type of thing, and I never cared for that, so I stayed on base most of the time with my friends.
Are there any guys from Amarillo that you remember, or anybody that you ran into again later on?
No, I don't remember any of the people I knew in Amarillo. It's kind of a temporary thing. Halfway through my course at Amarillo, I took some tests for cadet, flying cadet, and I passed all the courses, and so they gave me a week leave. So I got to go home for a week, and otherwise I wouldn't have been getting a furlough until the end of the course. Then when I came back, a week later, they stopped taking new cadets because they felt like they had enough, so they just let me there to continue my training.
But if you would have become a cadet, what would that have involved?
About another year of training, being a pilot.
That would have been a pilot of a bomber or a fighter?
Yeah.
Either one of those. Okay. When you went on leave, where did you go back?
Well, I came back to Fort Wayne here to my parents.
And that was done by train too, I imagine?
Yeah, so about half the time was spent on the trains getting here from there to there. A week's time, we get probably half of it in homes. But it was nice because I had been home for about 6-8 months, I guess.
What did your mother and father do? How did they get along while you were gone?
Well, they had the other children at home, so they probably I never heard too many comments about me.
I guess sometimes it's hard to take for the oldest to be gone. And
I think when my brother went in about a year later, I think it was pretty hard on him, for both of us being in.
did you talk with them very often or write back and forth?
Oh, yes, and we usually wrote quite often, at least once a month.
So you went back to Amarillo and you finished, how long were you in Amarillo?
I was there until the spring of 1944, I guess it was. Yes.
It'd be about March, probably.
March, and I was sent to Gunnery School in Kingman, Arizona. That was part of our training to fly was the gunnery, so that was a 3-month course.
So at the point of Amarillo, had you flown at all up to that time?
Not fly up to that time. Well, we worked on the planes, but we didn't fly. My first flights were in Amarillo, in Kingman, Arizona. We had to have gunnery practice in air and different targets and so forth. So flew there for the first time.
What do you remember about flying for the first time and anything coming back?
I had not flown before, so it was kind of neat because we flew kind of low altitude there, and there was kind of mountains around, and it was kind of neat to fly around and see the different things in the ground because you pick up different things, animals, what have you.
So at that time you would have been 19.
Yeah, I was still 19.
And, you're from Indiana. Had you ever been out of the state at the age of 19, or 18 until that time?
I hadn't been out of the state any farther than Michigan and Ohio, I guess.
Then you went to Florida, then Amarillo,
Yeah,
then
so that's the first time
Miami. So
first time I got to do any traveling.
what did you think when you first saw the desert and so forth in Kingman, all that coming in at one
It wasn't
time?
very nice because Kingman was a city of just a few hundred people, and that was the only town or anything around there for a couple 100 miles, so we were kind of isolated to our camp, really. So it wasn't that nice, and it was extremely hot, too, since it was in the summer or spring of the year. It did cool down at night a little more so than it did in Miami, but it was still plenty warm.
So you stayed in barracks or something
Yeah,
in Kingman?
we stayed in barracks.
How long were you in Kingman?
Approximately 3 months. We took ground gunnery for quite a while, the targets with the 50 caliber machine gun. And then we started flying, hit targets, flying targets, and also ground targets. So we had some low altitude flying too, which was kind of neat when you come down the ground almost 200 feet of the ground.
And you tried to hit targets on the ground with machine gun fire.
Yeah.
What was the flying target you were shooting?
Well, they just had banners on back of planes at the distance where we would shoot the plane down.
Did any planes ever get shot down?
I don't think so.
How often did you fly over that 3 months? Was it a daily thing or?
Well, I'd say the last month we were there, it was probably about a daily thing, because we flew quite a bit then. That would complete our training there.
Was the flying done there in B-17s? And
Yeah, it was all in B-17.
So at that point, you were getting familiar with the B-17.
That was the first time we had experience with the B-17s and the guns, turrets, and what have you.
So they let you, in the gunnery school, you were operating all the guns on the B-17. They moved you around, or trained you on one specific?
They just trained you on one specific one. Since I was trained for top turret, that's all I fired.
Show where the top turret is on here.
Well, I don't know if you can see it, but this is the top turret that I was involved in operating. That was my station there in the pilot's compartment around there. Of course, I had to run the whole plane, but that was where I was located most of the time, because I was in charge of the enlisted men on the plane. So I would have to visit different areas of the plane at different times.
Okay, you said you were in charge of the enlisted men. Who did that represent?
There were about 7 guys who were enlisted, and we had 3 officers, lieutenants.
Okay. We'll probably get into that in a little more detail later on who was in the plane and the rank and that, but that kind of sets it up as we go. Right now we had you in Kingman, Arizona, in Gunnery School. What was done on your spare time there?
There, the spare time was limited because there wasn't anything we could do, but we were confined to the desert, and that's the way it was.
So basically 3 months of school.
Yeah, it was 3 months.
Pretty intense.
And, I went to the little town of Kingman one night. Oh no, is this it? Jeez.
Not a lot of women in Kingman, Arizona.
Well, there's some Indians, mostly. There's a few Indians.
Out of Kingman then, which you said you were there about 3 months, that would bring us into about June?
Yeah, I think it was June when I was taken out of Kingman and sent to Lincoln, Nebraska. And here is where our crews were formed and put together. The different training that the different people had in the crew when they were put together there in the different stations in the plane.
Again, you went from Kingman to Lincoln and trained?
We didn't, we always went by train.
Okay.
We were only there maybe a week at Lincoln because we just got together and got acquainted with our crew members, and then we went to our next destination.
Okay. And those, were those crew members you met, did they remain your crew members throughout the war until you were shot down?
Yes. Yeah, they were the same one. Same on occasions why someone had to fly with another crew if they were short, sick personnel or something. But basically, our crew was always together.
So there were 9 of you who were
together all the way through.
Okay. Later on, we're going to try to name all those guys, if not most of them.
As many as I can remember.
As many as you can remember, anyway. And we know several of them. But after the week in Lincoln, then you went on to where then?
In Rapid City, South Dakota. And there we met, we were put together as a crew and given a plane to train. So I think we only spent about a month there, approximately, maybe a little bit longer. So all of our training missions were over the Black Hills of South Dakota, around that area. So as a crew, we went through, gunnery training there again, every little detail as far as our positions in the plane.
Did they go over any detail on what you would do in case you were shot down at that point?
No, there was nothing said about anything like that, so they don't want to discourage you.
They figured that wouldn't happen.
No, they don't want to discourage you. But
So You went through procedures as far as bombing runs and so forth, as if you were actually dropping bombs in South Dakota.
We had bomb targets at different altitudes, and we did drop imitation bombs that you could see hit the target or miss it or whatever. I don't know what substance it was. It was a powdery type thing.
What altitudes did you fly typically? Do you remember?
Well, there it seemed like we just flew not any more than 10,000, 12,000 feet. So, training.
Did that involve oxygen mask?
No, it didn't involve oxygen there. So I think that's why we stayed in that altitude. Later on, of course, we had oxygen because we flew much, much higher.
Any landmarks you remember flying over in that area?
The Great Stone Faces, you could see them very vividly from the air as we flew over them through the Black Hills.
Yeah, Mount Rushmore in 1944 was pretty remote, what still is for that matter. That probably gave you kind of a funny feeling, didn't it?
Yeah, it was the first time I experienced anything like that. So it really did make me feel kind of proud.
Did most of the guys in your crew, were they similar to you in background? I mean, being many places, or?
No, I'm not real sure about that. I think the ones I knew personally, why they were similar to me, not that much traveling. Like the officers, I didn't know them that well, so I don't know what their background was.
What age were most of the men?
And we had, one, I think I was about the youngest really, and from 20, I think I turned 20 there, about 20 to 28. Yeah. One of my waist gunners was 28 years old. He was the old man of the crew.
And the pilots were?
He was only about 23, 22. Old pilot.
So the 23-year-old kid basically had the responsibility of piloting
a plane like that.
B-17 during wartime. How long were you in Rapid City again?
I think we were there approximately a month or so before our crew was trained and ready to go overseas. So we were sent from there to, I think we stopped for refueling somewhere in New York and at an airfield, and we sent on to Labrador, Canada for overnight.
So Rapid City was the last preparation.
That's the last training period here in the States.
From there, you flew the plane to?
Yeah, they had crews at that particular time flew the planes over there. Not that you flew that plane you took over, but you always flew one overseas, so that way that was a good way to get them.
That was the way they replenished the planes that they were losing over there to build up the bomb forces.
And so we flew to Iceland from Labrador. We had to have our special gas tanks put in the bomb bay because that was too much of a distance for our regular 2,800 gallon tanks, so we had to get another 600 or 800 gallon bomb bay tanks.
So the plane's tanks were in the wings?
Yes, everything was in the wings.
Was that a common path or route for crews to fly out of the States through Rapid City? Was that one of the bigger air bases where they flew out of?
I'm not sure if they had some other air base or not, but that one was a pretty large one. They flew a lot of crews out of it. I'm sure there was a couple other training bases somewhere too. We were flying so many crews over there at that time.
So there's a constant stream in that route, and everybody went through Iceland.
Yeah, I might add that on halfway across the Atlantic way, our cockpit up in the front area of the plane all smoked up. We had a wiring fire in the plane, and that made us a little bit nervous. We weren't sure what was causing the fire. And I finally scrounged around. I found some wiring had shorted out. It wasn't the important enough to cause any major problems, so I just disconnected it. And otherwise, I was about scared to death of some of my bombing runs later, thinking a plane was going to go down the middle of the Atlantic. But it really smoked up in there. It took a while to get it cleared out.
Were there bombers lost over the Atlantic en route to England?
Well, I'm sure there were some, but not knowingly, I don't think the Germans were prepared to come at that distance to destroy any bombers.
Anything lost would have just been from weather or mechanical failure?
Mechanical weather is basically what can happen there. And we landed at Iceland. It was still partially light there. I think we got there in the middle of the night. It was still about half and half light.
Yeah, so it had been July of 1944.
Well, I'd say this was probably August, late August. It was early September. We got down to England, so we stayed at Iceland just a day or so until they prepared the crew to go to England. But I remember our crew would play football on the field that night. It was that light. Just unbelievable bright, far north.
What was the weather like in Iceland? Was it pretty mild at that time of year?
It wasn't too bad. It was probably in the 40s or 50s. It was pleasant because it was, like I said, on the 1st of September.
If somebody had a football where you...
Yeah, if somebody had a ball, we were throwing that baby and running all over the place.
Letting off some steam after the experience in the air.
Yeah, it was an interesting landing strip there in Iceland. Kind of jogged out over the water a little bit. We only had about 15 minutes of fuel left when we got there, so I was kind of glad to see it. Since our bombardier, well, that was his first experience too. Each navigator, I should say, was their way of getting some training by taking across to Iceland.
Finding Iceland, so you were thankful you had a good navigator in that case.
I guess so. Thanked him quite a bit.
So you were at Iceland, and from that point you flew where into England then?
Well, it was to the western part of England at an airfield, and we spent a few days there. I can't think of the name of the area before we were sent on to the field where we were to do our flying. It was near London, the town of Ipswich, and the airfields were scattered over the countryside. They had something like 152 airfields flying planes out of England, so it was just pinpointed with airfields all over.
This is on the eastern coast.
That's the eastern coast, coast, not that far from the coast anyhow.
How many miles would it have been, roughly?
Oh, maybe 20 or 30 miles, I don't know.
And you flew into this airfield?
I was probably about the second week of September, I suppose. We started to get flying missions the 1st of October, I think it was, over Germany.
So that airfield you flew into then, that was the one you were to fly missions out of?
They always had 39 bombers on a field, and they expected to put 36 in the air for missions each time. So there's always a few of them being moved on mechanically or repairs some damage or something from the war.
Okay, from get an idea how the whole hierarchy was structured. What bomb group were you in, and how was that in wing and so forth? How was that divided up?
Well, I was in a 390th bomb group, and we had squadrons. We had 4 squadrons in the group, and mine was the 568 squadron.
So that bomb group was that airfield. Is that how it worked?
No, the group was at that field because each squadron just put up either 10 or 12 planes for our mission. So we had 4 different squadrons there. And one squadron might not fly every time. They might have one on the ground, and then three would fly.
390th was a part of what then?
The 8th Air Force.
The 8th Air Force, which was based over several air bases in England? Or?
Yeah, we covered all of England. That was the 8th Air Force.
Okay, the 8th Air Force. Is there a division beyond bomber group? Like, did they divide it by wings or something?
I'm not real sure about that. So.
Okay. But you were 390th Bomb Group in the 8th Air Force.
Right.
And we're setting in September of 1944. And you started flying missions in October.
Yeah, it was in the first part of October we started flying our first mission. That was quite an experience because they always fed you real good before you left. They always give you a big breakfast if you wanted it.
What would a typical day be like on the day of a mission? At what time would you get up?
We'd get up.
What would you talk about and so forth?
We'd get up about 6 o'clock, 5:30 or 6, and then my one waist gunner, well, he was hard to get up, so I always had to throw him out of bed, so I'm sure he was flying. And that was a whole pairing. Then we'd go to breakfast, and we'd go to a briefing where at that point they would show you what your target was going to be on that particular mission, and the time, the type of bombs you were going to run in, you were going to have, and also the number of German planes that might bomb you, and the flak that they would be sending up, all the information that you really needed. So it kind of made you nervous before you got out of the briefing.
So they showed you actual photographs of
the territory we was going to bomb. Yeah.
So you knew where there was, where the target was. Were there ever occasions where you were told to avoid areas around that could have been hospitals or schools or things?
Yeah, they always bombed just a specific target, and of course there were some stray bombs. Of course, it did hit some of the civilians, but not to any great degree. Like British, they bombed at night. They just dropped your bombs basically in the cities, and they just destroyed a lot of.
They scatter bomb.
Yeah, but we didn't do that.
We're going to show where he landed in England and where his base was located relative to some of the major cities.
Actually, London's located here, and we were probably about 75 miles north of London. They were a town of Ipswich, they called them. There were a lot of airfields all dotted through the countryside there.
75 or about 25?
152 airfields.
Okay, well, you said it was 75 miles. I thought it was 25.
It was part of that.
Oh, was it? It was 75. Okay.
Yeah.
So right there is where you flew out of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So we're not too far from the channel there.
All right, we're back to the first mission a little bit. What you were telling about how you prepared for the first mission and what it was like a typical day and what you thought about, I guess, before that first one, how scary it was and such.
After the briefing, when actually we were a little nervous, I think our target that day was a bridge over the Rhine River. And so we knew that we'd have some proper fighters and plenty of ag guns pointing at us, flag. So it made us kind of nervous, but we formed our planes go up in England. There it takes quite a while to get your formation lined up for you. Start across the channel. So with a lot of fog and clouds in England, so we're always worried about getting through all those. And we form our formation about 20,000 feet up. And then we got together, and we would start across the channel, and we would continue to go up to 25 to 30,000 feet.
So you would set your formation up over land, basically.
Yeah, basically over land, and that would, our group would be one part of it, and there would be many other groups that would be involved in one mission. So you might have 100 planes, 200, 300, 400. This mission, I think, was about, I think we just had about three groups that were involved for this bridge. And then they take photos of all your bomb runs and everything, see if you hit your target. And I think that day where we had a pretty good luck, we put out the target without losing any planes. We had some flag different areas, but the fighters didn't come up to us on that mission.
So by flak, that's created by anti-aircraft from the ground.
Yeah, from the ground. They shoot up, they're not real accurate when they get up about 25,000 feet. So that's one reason that we flew bomb runs at that altitude.
So did you have to drop in lower than when you unloaded?
No, I stayed at that altitude, never any lower than 25,000 feet. That was an average bomb run. Of course, when you make a bomb run, you have to, the plane has to go on level flight for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, so you're a pretty good target for your enemy to gun, so you can pinpoint you pretty good.
That 10 minutes is the actual approach onto the bomb target.
Target can't vary, so you get the target and everything. Bomb sites, and then we drop the bombs as a group, since we only had one bomb site per group usually.
So that your whole squadron dropped on one site.
Yeah. So that's why we had a few stray bombs every now and then.
Okay. Each B-17 carried about 6,000 pounds, I think.
Well, I think 4,000 to 6,000, depending on the type of bombs that they carried, the weight levels they could have. Loaded in a little differently.
But how long of a flight was it from the time you took off to the time you hit your target?
Well, on this day, every time we got back and hit the target, get back to England, this one was only 7 hours, but it was a shorter run than some of the ones I had done later. But, we didn't counter it, we didn't lose any planes in our group this day. So happy about that.
What were some of the things you think about on your, I guess before the mission and en route to the target? It seems like there's a lot of dead time. Are you on the radio much? Is that the only way you communicate?
Well, not on the radio too much. The intercom in the plane, you just see every station is, they're okay, so that's about all you do is call around. You don't really chit-chat or anything like that much.
So everything is real serious all the way in.
And in my case, not being a real religious person, but I always managed to say a little prayer the mission I went up. And I think it made you feel a little better.
Was there any kind of ritual or anything before the flights went up? I think one time you said they gave you a drink or something.
They do that when you come back.
Oh, when you come back.
Settle your nerves and give you a shot of liquor if you want. I always gave mine to my buddies because I didn't care for them. So that was about the only thing. Then we'd go into a debriefing room and tell what we knew about the mission and so forth. The outcome of things.
How long did that usually last?
Oh, that didn't last more than a half an hour, maybe at most. We were free to back to our barracks. Usually you didn't get called for missions every day. It was just depended on the target and how many planes they needed, of course. So it probably was another week before we went on another mission. Meanwhile, I got a weekend pass on buddy and I, we went to London, got to see some of the city of London, Piccadilly Circus, and that's the main downtown areas, and all were bombs that hit in some sections of London, and it was pretty well destroyed, but the downtown area was pretty well missed, and it was in good shape.
And this would have been September of 44.
Yeah,
Or September, October.
Yeah, 44. Well, we met some English friends or people, and it was kind of interesting to chit-chat with them. So kind of give us a break from our other activities. Base.
At that time, was London being bombed?
At that time, London wasn't being bombed, but they had V-2 rockets coming over England, any place in England, because the Germans didn't have control of them, and they were silent. They just came and landed, and did the damage wherever they might hit.
Did you ever see or hear one of those coming in?
Yeah, on several occasions, but we were not close enough to be harmed by them. And then the most interesting tool they had was what you call a buzz bomb. It was a slow-moving plane that just carried so many tons of destructive ammunition or bombs, whatever, and it would take off. It was run by automatic pilot from Germany or France, and they would come across the channel and just land whenever it ran out of gas.
So you could hear the buzz bombs coming in, and when they
chopping, their little choppy engines, and you could hear them, and then kind of watch them, and you didn't hear the engines anymore, or you got a little concerned, because that's when they were coming down.
They just came down randomly then.
Yeah, so they hit the civilian population all the time with this type of bombing.
So it was just a terrorist type thing.
That's what it was.
What did those come across quite often, or was it a rare occasion to hear one?
They sent them more by the hundreds, what you call the buzz bombs, and the V-2. I'm not sure about those because you didn't see those as much because of the quickness of them.
They were rockets.
They were rockets. They were the first rocket to go up in space.
The V-2 came along a little bit later then, didn't it? So you were over there when V-2s were coming down.
It wasn't there probably earlier in the war. It was I think in the summer of 44 they started using it.
But were they trying to target London or just get it over the channel to anywhere where it
I think they just got over the channel because I don't think they had control of that bomb at all, that rocket. I think they just set it for a certain distance and they could be miles apart from the target.
So the same thing with the buzz bombs.
Yeah, they were just, the time I was over there where the Germans didn't send any bombers over, they had bombed London for several months prior to that, and so they got their forces hit to Russia, so they kind of bypassed London because the channel was not too much of an obstacle for them. They thought they were licked anyways from the bombings they had taken, so Hitler said, we'd go and get the Russians, come back and get finish England off in the spring of the year.
Do you remember each mission you went on individually, or do they just kind of blend together after?
They kind of blend together. I remember some of the targets, but I don't remember the names of the targets of the cities. Usually we had what we call marshalling yards. That's where those trains were the cheap way of transportation. So we hit those all the time around cities. And I suppose half my missions were on those, either those or some bridges or oil refineries, storage, something like that.
Anything that would destroy their ability to make war.
Their ability to run the equipment.
Were there secondary targets set up if you couldn't find your
We
first?
always had a secondary target in case the weather was to the point where we couldn't get to that target. We always had a secondary target. We always dropped our bombs were always gone before we left Germany.
Did you have to ever go to the secondary target?
I think one time we went to a secondary target. And, it was due to the weather, and on the way back to England, I was running out of fuel because it was an extra hour or so on our fuel supply. And so fortunately, there was an airfield that they located in France that was taken by our forces, and so we were able to land there off of I think there were 6 of our planes landed at this field in France, and some of the other ones that were running low on fuel, they found another field to land, so we had to stay for a day or two. I forgot just how long it was till they got more fuel in for our planes. They wouldn't let us roam around too much because the field had just been taken back from the Germans, and they had a lot of mines around, booby traps around the field. Some of not our crew, but some of the other crew had a couple guys got wounded by wandering a little bit too far on the beaten path, so to speak.
Do you remember about what mission that was?
Oh, I think that was about my 5th mission. Possibly it was in the first part of November sometime, I would think.
What part of France was that in?
Well, it was to the central part of France, but I don't know what city it was located at or anything.
You were isolated there a couple of days till you had fuel, then you flew back to
England. So it was just one of those missions that was a little worrisome. We was going to run out of fuel, and we had to find a place to land.
Why was fuel so short on that? Just from the winds, or
well, we had to go,
or you went deeper?
A lot deeper out to get by bad weather conditions. So yes, we went to our secondary target. We had to go circle around a longer distance to get away from bad weather.
So you knew you were going to be short. You were just if you wouldn't have had that airfield, you would have probably had to ditch it somewhere.
It was a possibility because I think they had contact with the field, so they probably knew ahead of time, maybe an hour, that they had the field available. It was kind of quite an interesting experience. That's the first time I encountered some French people. And they weren't too friendly, really. The English were much friendlier people than France.
Why were the French so unfriendly?
I don't know. I guess I don't know the reason for it, but maybe it was just because the war had them all.
Just from the stress of the war.
I suppose.
You would have thought they'd been happy to see you.
They never was too happy. We had to take care of our planes there, and also feed us and that type of thing. Food was a little bit scarce too.
I hated to give it up. On any of your missions, did you see other aircraft flying in, Royal Air Force or?
No, because the Royal Air Force flew that night. So.
Did you ever pass them coming back in, or?
On one occasion, we did, because they were bombing on daylight run this time. We sent something like 2,000 planes over. Had the Battle of Bulge, and they were hitting all the targets around there. So the British were sending planes over, and we were sending planes over, trying to hit all the approaching targets that we could, cut off of the Germans and stuff.
So that would have been December of 44.
Yeah,
that point.
That we're up to December of 44 now.
And that, about what mission would you have had during the Battle of the Bulge?
Let's see, we're up to about I'd say about the 10th mission.
Do you remember what your target was during the Battle of the Bulge?
Well, we had some bridges that we had to take care of. I think I bombed our crew bombed 2 different days in a row. The 24th of December and Christmas Day both. We bombed bridge approaches and so forth. So that.
What was that like, bombing over Christmas? Did your crew talk about it, or?
Well, when we got back, we mentioned it. We had a Merry Christmas when we got back. There's not too much was said about it. Gifts and so forth. We didn't run into that many fighters on those missions. There was ag guns most basically. So you got across the channel and the whole sky was black with
From flak.
flag.
So you didn't really encounter much fire on all your missions as far as from fighters.
One other mission we encountered several. In fact, one plane was several of the planes were jets. They were the new German had some jets coming out there. And,
What would you think when you saw those?
yeah, we couldn't figure out what the heck it was. No props or anything coming at us, firing into the group. And, so it we found out later that they had some. They were using not a great deal. Mostly they had the Talkwood 190, and I think that was the one they used the most.
So
109.
So other than just surprising you, the jets really didn't do much damage.
No,
Air Force.
I think we lost one plane in that mission from our group. But we just had some shells on through our plane. Didn't do any major damage as far as getting any fuel tanks or anything.
Now, every mission you took, were you in a different B-17?
Yeah, we didn't. We might have flown the same one on a few occasions, but we didn't have our designated B-17. The crews that have been over there longer, where they got one, and they just continued to use that same plane. But
So you didn't have a name for any of your planes?
For our planes, so whatever the plane was available, we took. We got the later models. They had different models coming out. B-17, we got some of the better models later. Did a few things that some of the other ones wouldn't do.
Did you talk with other planes very often on the radio when you were up in the air? You kept quiet?
No, our radio operator had contact with them, but the rest of the personnel on the plane, maybe I'm not sure about the pilot. Maybe he had contact with the lead plane, I would think.
in the course of the flight, how long were you into the flight before you got into the battle positions or into the turret?
Well, I'd say normally about 4 hours, depending on how deep in Germany we went. We usually got in there if we knew there was any fighters around. If they started to approach us, we automatically get in our positions then. So prior to that, we just kind of went about our business as usual.
What were some of your duties on the plane besides the upper turret?
Well, I just had some instruments to check out back in the radio area, radio department, and basically that was my duties to see. Some of them were interchangeable. If they weren't functioning properly, whether I had some parts that I could interchange with certain ones. So I did that. That was one main thing I did. I just checked with the crew and see if they were all okay in position and so forth. Most of the duties while you were flying.
We're going to go through each crew member names and where they were located on the bomber.
This is, I'm just giving their last names. Niebergall, he was a pilot. This is our navigator, Bowman. Of course, I think that's me right there, Putt. This is May, and he was a ball turret operator. And this is Jack Palmer, was a tail gunner. And this was Comstock, was the co-pilot. This gentleman here was May, and he was a ball turret gunner. This guy was Ladd, and he was a waist gunner, and this Herring, and he was a waist gunner on the crew.
Which there were 4 of the 9 who ended up being killed during the war.
Well, the May was killed in the ball turret, and the Ladd was killed in a waist gunner, and I think Bowman lost his life. One of the other ones lost her life in prison camps trying to escape, and Parada, I forgot Parada, he's a radio operator, he got killed trying to escape from a prison camp later on.
Okay.
So we lost 4 members of our crew out of 10.
Okay. Now I want to show where each individual was in the plane, or what position he was in the plane.
Well, we had the navigator operate this turret. He was up in this area. Of course, the pilot and the co-pilot. And I was the engineer, so I was located in the same area with the pilot. And then you go back to the Bombay area and you come to the radio station, the radio operator, and right in that same vicinity was the ball turret right below it. And then you have the 2 waist gunners on both sides of the ship there, and then you have the tail gunner way to the rear where that turret is.
Who operated the Bombay, or who was the bombardier?
Well, the bombardier, I'm not sure who was on the ship that day. I think the navigator operated that too, because he just had to go by the bomb sight of the lead plane, so I think that's all he was from.
All right, that gives us an idea of how the plane's set up and who was in each one of those positions. What I would like to concentrate on now is the 13th mission, which was the mission where he was shot down.
On the 14th of January, 1945, it was our 13th mission. And we went to the briefing room while he showed us the target. We were a little bit concerned because it was oil refinery on the outskirts of Berlin. So that was our deepest penetration and targets. So we were concerned that, 13th mission, why we were a little superstitious too.
Berlin is right there.
Berlin, so we had to come all the way across from England, so it's quite a distance.
The North Sea is right here. France is down here. See a flight over to Berlin.
So it was a 9-hour flight to get there, reach a target, but weather didn't interfere, and get back to the English Channel over to England.
How far were you en route before you started taking fire?
We had, certainly across the English Channel, you got flak and ag gun type thing, and all along the route to the target while we got hit by that type of guns. And we didn't have any fighters that attacked us until a little later. But some of the planes got damaged a little bit from the ag guns. We were within, just a few minutes of our target when our plane, our particular squadron, was having a little engine trouble, so we had to drop down to maybe 1,000 feet lower in the main group. From there, our escort had turned back, so we were alone and knew that we were going to expect some fighters at any time. It was only a few minutes and there they come. German Focke-Wulf 190s, which is one of the better fighters. They just came with dozens to our 6 o'clock position. They come in, go through, fire their rounds of ammunition, and they'd circle and come back. I imagine there was about 50 fighters involved. We had 10 in our squadron.
10 B-17s. And you were returning fire from all the guns?
We were returning fire from all the guns. Of course, we got several of the fighters were knocked down, and I did see a couple of B-17s go down. I was kind of uncertain whether anybody got out of one because it went into a spiral and spinning. It was pretty rough to get out of it when they do that.
Which side of you was that on? Where were you in formation?
Well, we were right about in the middle of the formation, so that's probably why we survived to the last plane. The whole battle probably take 10 minutes, but I found out piecing information together later on that we were one of the last planes that were shot down.
So the formation flies in a V with planes in the middle. A squadron is 11 planes in a V.
Well, on that day we just had 10 because one had to turn back earlier, and so mechanical problems. So we had 10, 17. But the battle, as it was real exciting. You didn't have time to think about it. You just fired your guns. Hope that you might succeed in making the mission.
What kind of day was it?
It was a clear day. We were flying approximately 25,000 feet, and fighters come through. You can hear the shells bursting through our plane. My position, a plexiglass which surrounds the turret, came shattering out. Fortunately, I didn't get wounded too seriously.
How did you keep from getting hit with the glass shattering?
I don't know. Fortunately, when it hit to the point where it didn't hit down, maybe the shattering was kind of big pieces of plexiglass. So the shell itself didn't strike me. So then I know the other parts of the plane had been hit. We had one wing was on fire, and so that meant gasoline could explode at any moment. The pilot still didn't give the okay to leave the ship yet, so we kept going, firing, returning the fire to the fighters for another few minutes. Then our other wing became fire, and so there we were pretty well. Had our limitations then because we had multiple wing fires.
Is the intercom system still working?
The intercom system was still working.
What was it like when you were taking fires? There a lot of talk back and forth?
Well, everybody was busy with what they were doing. They just say, well, there comes another round. Everybody started firing, and I was supposed to check the bomb bay. When I left my turret, I went to see the bomb load was still on yet. I was supposed to release that mechanically, you know. We even had a fire in there, so I couldn't release them, so I just backed off.
But they weren't activated yet, were they, the bombs?
They weren't, so we were released. That was a normal procedure to release.
All this time you're on oxygen to everybody in the crew?
We're still on oxygen.
Still at 25,000 feet.
Yeah,
the battle took place.
Yeah, it probably didn't vary down in 25,000 feet. It might have been down to 24 or something. Well, ended up, I'm not sure. And the pilot gave word on the intercom to abandon the ship. So
at that time, was anybody injured or killed?
It was out at that time where the two guys were killed by May and Ladd. They were already, but I did not know.
May was the ball turret gunner, and Ladd was the waist gunner.
And Palmer, I don't know. I presume he was wounded at that time too. He had most severe wounds from a tailgun position. As far as I know, the pilot, co-pilot, the navigator, they didn't have any noticeable wounds, but we know everything happened so quickly.
So you weren't able to release the bombs then?
No, I couldn't release them. The apparatus wouldn't work, so I found my chest chute, which I couldn't wear in the turret, so I was kind of worried about it maybe being damaged by some fragments of shells or something.
So who in the plane could wear their chutes in their position?
The pilot, co-pilot, the bombardier, the navigator, the bombardier and navigator, they had one, and race gunners. Well, everybody's wearing, but the turret operators, really. That would be the tail gunner and the lower turret operator.
So the three of you couldn't wear them. You had to put them on afterwards.
So unfortunately, mine didn't just snap on front type of shoe, so I got it snapped on. By that time, my co-pilot already bailed out. So
could you hear? Were you still taking fire when you were looking for your chute? They were still.
Oh yeah,
you could still hear.
They were still firing. At that time, I didn't know we were the last plane to shot down. So we were the 10th plane out of the squadron to get knocked down there just a few minutes.
So probably 10 minutes they took out 10 B-17s.
Yeah, it was not much longer than that. Everything went so quickly. Didn't have time to concentrate or anything. Everything happened so quick.
How close did the German fighters come to the B-17s when they
on
were
one
firing?
occasion, I was firing up one German fighter. I could see the face of the pilot. They were that close as he went by the side of the plane. So we probably could have been 100 yards away. I don't even think it was that far away. I'd say a couple hundred feet.
Could they see you inside the plane?
They could tell where we were, in a different position. They would see that. No, I thought they probably see the pilot. That's good. The pilot. That was. I remember that. I remember that pilot's face as he went by.
He probably wasn't very old either.
No, they were all young fellows, just like we were. I finally got to the front exit, the hatch to bail out, so I checked my chute once more. I just stuck my head down, flopped down. All I heard then was a bunch of quiet as the air went whistling by my ears. I fell. I couldn't hear any of the battle noise anymore. You could hear any noise, everything went silent. Then I started to remember how far I should fall before I opened my chute, so I counted 10, I think, something like that.
Should get you in safe oxygen.
Yeah. think it was auction one that she got down about 15,000, I pass out very easily. So I drew to my chute. I remember the ripcord. It was much harder to pull than I thought it was. I have to pull it once, nothing happened. Again, and still nothing happened. I want to jerk the heck out of it. And the chute whipped out and left over my head. Then I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. I landed it. If there would be any Germans down there waiting.
When you were falling with the chute, could you see anything around you as far as?
Yeah, I could see. I couldn't see any more of our people or anything. I didn't even see any of the parachutes. I saw a German firing around the parachutes. I didn't know if they was firing at me or some other ones. The point where I couldn't see.
They were actually firing at people with parachutes.
Firing up in the air.
Well,
So.
none of the flyers were armed to any.
No, we didn't. Some once in a while somebody would carry a pistol, but most of us didn't. They didn't bother with arms. It was trouble for us. It wouldn't do much good if you got captured.
How long did you actually fall in the chute? How long were you up there? I know the chute dropped quickly.
I don't know. I would say it was maybe 15 minutes before I got to the ground. Just a guess. And I kept seeing the people on the ground kept getting closer. And the wind was blowing a little bit, so I drifted away from it. On the other side of a wooded area, so I probably landed maybe a couple, 3 blocks from where they were. As soon as I came to, I kind of stunned myself. I hit my head in the ground, the frozen ground, and shoot. Landed.
Was it snow covered?
There was some snow, but there were some areas that were melted. So I was coming to my senses. I said, well, I better take off that wood. That's all I could remember. So I took off the woods and tried to follow the melted areas so you could see the tracks. And then I found the area there was kind of a rice pond down a little ravine. And I crawled in there and covered myself up. Of course, I had my flight, the suit on and everything, so I blended in pretty good. So I just laid there and trying to figure out what happened to me.
It all happened so quick.
It happened so quick, and that's when I really get scared.
We're in the woods now, after just landing after being shot down. And now what happens next?
Well, I was in there, in my little hiding place, and I heard German voices off in the distance. They had searching through this wooded area because they knew I was probably in there. I know they were within 100 feet of me. I could hear them chatting back and forth. And after about 5 minutes, with their voices faded away, and they just left me. So there I was just there by myself, and not knowing whether they'd come back again.
Tell us what they told you in the last briefing before your flight.
They told us in the last briefing before we went on these missions that they were not taking any prisoners alive, and so I was a little bit concerned about that, of course. And, my main concern now was when I was lying there, I was trying to figure out how bad I was wounded, because I had a lot of severe pains around my waist. And I started to shake my body over, and still in pain. The harness that ripped the skin off my waist all the way around, and my ankles were hurt from the fall. Also, I cracked my cheek on the ground, and it was sore. And one puncture wound in my side. I don't know where I got that. They all kind of mended themselves later on. never did have any medical attentions. So I was able to walk. I hobbled around. It got dark. I walked quite a few miles that night, not knowing for sure where I was heading, but I tried to go away from the city of Berlin because I did have a compass and some maps on me. So I just headed north, not knowing where I would be going or succeed getting anywhere. Anyhow, after the second night, I didn't have any problems that first night, and I got another place in the woods, a different location I stayed. When I woke up in the morning, I wasn't too far from a village. I could see down the valley, kids were out playing. And,
so you were in hilly terrain?
Yeah, it was kind of hilly. And so I heard some dogs barking. I was concerned that they would locate me. But somehow I managed to, probably another day, dog being called. And this next night, I got a little braver. I was walking along the road, and all of a sudden I heard some Germans talking just a short distance ahead of me. And I was very close to a camp of some kind because they had guards walking out front of this gate. But it was a real dark night, so they didn't see me, and I traced my steps and very slowly, and I got out of there without they'd noticed. Then I went a little farther, and I came to a little village, and people were wandering around the road there. I stayed outside the village, and well, heck, I think I'll just try to walk through that village. It was dark, and there wasn't too many people on. I did. I went and walked through the village, and a couple of guys raised their hands to me, and I grunted out something. And
they thought you were German?
Yeah, they thought I was probably German, so they didn't say anything.
Do you remember the name of that village?
No, I don't have any idea.
It would have been west of Berlin somewhere.
Yeah, it would have been, but I have no idea.
You have no idea where you were at that time?
And I came to a railroad spur, and I thought, well, I'll just follow this railroad for a while, so this is easy walking and that type of thing. So, but by that time, I was getting pretty tired because all I had was, I think I had one candy bar on me and a pack of gum or something when I was shot down. So
you were in the third day without anything to eat?
Third day without any food. Well, that really didn't enter my mind yet because I was still worried about other things, more so than food at that point. Anyhow, I was walking down this railroad track, and I was getting a little tired. I wasn't paying that much attention. Some flashlight came up on the tracks about 100 yards ahead of me or less, and I stopped real still. And well, what should I do? Should I make a run for it, or they probably won't see me? And by the time I made that decision, they hollered out. Some of the German comrades back behind me that came on the track, they were all looking for prisoners, I guess, and they came on the track. And so here was four guys, they were walking towards each other, and I was right in the middle between them. So
they didn't even know you were there?
They didn't know I was there, but I thought, well, now if I run, they're going to shoot me for sure. So the time I made up my mind, I just stayed there.
They just stumbled across you, basically.
Then they all got all excited because they rounded up a prisoner. They treated me pretty good. They pushed me around a little bit, searching me and stuff. They didn't really beat on me or anything like that.
Were these guys civilians, or were they
employed by the Army? They had uniforms on, but they were older. Well, I say older, I suppose they were in their 40s or something, sent out to round up prisoners and so forth. They all Germans had some job of some sort over there. So, two of them took me back to it might have been the same village I was going through, I'm not sure. They had a cell in the barn there, so they stuck in that.
It was like the town jail or something?
Yeah, it was just one cell they had in the barn. And I think they finally gave me some water to drink there, maybe a little broth. That was, in the fourth day, a little hunk of bread. I was there on somebody's farm. It was a very small area. And, I was there for several days, and then they sent an officer or somebody to come in a car and pick me up. And they took me to another, a little larger town, which I don't know the name. And I was put in a cell there for a few days. Meanwhile, while we were there, we got bombed by the British Air Force. They were bombing anything in sight, so they didn't take me down to the bomb shelter. Everybody else went down.
They just left you up top?
Yeah, so I was just left up there. So fortunately, there wasn't anything that struck right there. Thank goodness for that. So that was my first experience with the bombing after I got to be a prisoner. I was there a few days, and then they took me on to Berlin. I was taken to an airfield in Berlin. And I was the only prisoner, so I haven't seen any other people that were shot down or anything. So that mission.
Back to that larger village, did they feed you anything there to speak of?
I didn't have much the same. They just give you a little hunk of German bread or and a little boiled broth. That was about it. But anyhow, I got to that German airfield, and they didn't really have a cell there for me. They put me in a basement area and just put a guard on me. He was kind of a young guard. I don't know. But I was only there a couple of days, and then they sent me on.
Did you ever think of trying to get away at that point?
No, there wasn't any point. I didn't follow that because I didn't have strength. I didn't. It was right in the heart of Berlin, so what could you do? Anyway, they gave. I think there was another guard that was taking me to an interrogation camp. So to get to the train station, he had to push me on a couple of buses there in Berlin, and that was an experience with the German people just being bombed.
You were just out with the civilians then, with one guard.
One guard, I don't know. And it was packed, like he shoved me on his car, and it was so packed he didn't go on. He ran it alongside of it until he got to the next stop before he got on the thing. So yeah, I was on there with those civilians by myself.
And you were in your flight suit and everything? Had anybody spoke any English to you at that time?
No English at all.
So you really didn't have any idea where you were going other than some type of prison?
Yeah, I knew I was going to a interrogation camp because there was essentially one of those. I knew that from the past.
How did the German civilians treat you or respond to you on that plane, or on the bus rather?
On the bus, it wasn't too long a ride, thank goodness. So I got off on the train where I had to stand up all the time. It was crowded anyways. I had to stand the whole trip. I don't know, it was a couple hours, whatever. But I think it was Wetzlar, Germany, where the interrogation camp was. It was just like a prison, it was a cell. They put each one in an individual cell. And they didn't tell you anything. They said, well, we'll talk to you later. Several days passed, and I was going crazy in there, wondering what was going to happen to me. And the only time they let you out was go to the restroom twice a day. And There wasn't supposed to be any other prisoners in there at the time you were left out. One day, a co-pilot was in the restroom, so I knew he had survived. I couldn't talk to him that much, but I got the message that the pilot survived and he survived.
That's pretty unlikely that you would have run into him at that point.
Very unusual, but that was probably about the 5th day I was there.
That would have been Comstock.
I think it was Comstock. I was there, and then I went back to the room, and no one bothered me or anything. I was put in this little cell, this little cot in there, and it's all so in the room. For another 5 days, they took me out. So I was in there 10 days. I guess they get you thinking, you know.
What did you think about when you were in there? You try to put the pieces together?
Yeah, I thought, well, I don't like the Germans very well. I knew that.
But how did the civilians do anything to you when you were paraded, or not paraded, but moved through there?
They just made comments, but later on, we had some problems with civilians, but that's down the line a little bit. Here, well, then they finally took me into an interrogation room on the 10th day. And they had walls and maps and every place in England. They had them in Germany and all the countries around there, which the Germans had acquired. And the guy spoke perfect English, probably from the United States, I suppose. Probably taught at school here and all that. And he started asking questions. Well, of course, all you were tired. You could just give your name, serial number, that type of thing. And rang. And you try to get other information out of you if you know anything. He probably kept me in there about 15 minutes, and he would show me different areas on the map there and ask me questions. Well, I never answered or gave him anything because I didn't. In fact, he knew more than I did about some activities that took place. Bomb run, he knew our target that day, the amount of bombs we had, the number of planes involved, the group where they came from, England, commander's name. He knew all of that. And of course, the altitude was flying. I suppose some of the other prisoners might have given some of that information. I don't know. It just depends on how bad you feel. Sometimes you're going to give out some information which you don't care to do so.
Did they do anything to you when they were interrogating you, or just basically questions?
Just basically, just kept pointing at things. Never got too violent or anything. He raised his voice once in a while. Well, you sure, you know? Please tell me this. Please tell me that. You know, real polite. After a while, he knew he wasn't getting any more out of me, which I didn't know that much more anyhow. So he said, well, I'll send you back to cell, and you think you can talk a little more, I'll bring you back out. I said, oh, no, I thought to myself, I'm going back in, spend another 10 days or whatever. About a day after I was sent to the cell again, they took me out and said some of us other prisoners were going to be moved to another camp, a permanent camp. So there I saw my pilot, co-pilot.
What camp was that? Is that one that was on the map? Or?
I don't think I remember that. It was not too far from it. Westlaw. It's Westlaw. I don't know if it shows it in this map or not. But it was in here quite a bit. Probably in that area.
Here's Berlin.
So it was probably in this area.
This is west of Berlin somewhere. Yeah. What was the name of it again?
Wetzlar or Whistler.
Okay.
It was not that large of an area either. But anyhow, we were moved by boxcars to the next camp, and I don't know, it didn't take us maybe a day to get there, so we probably went a great distance. there. I was spent maybe a month or so at this camp. My radio operator, he kind of was upset because he thought he should have got the ball turret operator out of the plane or checked him out.
Yeah. So you never really knew if the ball turret man was dead or not? You just thought he was?
Didn't know for sure, but anyhow, it worked on his mind so much that one day he decided he was going to try to escape. We saw him run over the fence and try to climb the wire fence, and he went up so far and they shot him, and he still continued to get over both fences. He was running across the field, and they brought him back a half hour later, and some bullet wounds in his head, so they probably shot him after they got to him. Because if he was climbing over the fence and had a shot in the head, he wouldn't have gone very far, I'm sure. So I figure after they finally got to him, they shot him.
So they brought him back into the camp then to show everybody?
Yeah, I saw him. Yeah, real nice guy, too. He just worried, I don't know why, he just decided he was going to try to get out or something. So a way to escape. Large stations all around the fence. Two wire fences.
Did he have any injuries or anything? Head injury or something?
I don't know. It's a possibility that he did because the way he acted. I kind of wondered about it, but he didn't have any major injury. He was a radio operator, and that part wasn't damaged, I guess, much.
How long were you in the camp before that happened?
Oh, probably a couple of weeks. Also, about 3 weeks later, some bearded guy came wandering in camps. I was a prisoner, was just brought in, and he said, how you doing, Bob? And I said, well, I'm doing all right. And I looked at him a couple of times, and I couldn't figure out who it was. And it was one of my waist gunners, harrowing.
Which guy was that?
Where is it? That's harrowing at the bottom of that sign. He had been living in a farmer's barn for almost a month after he got shot down. He just livestock food and all that. And he was so skinny, and he carried a little more weight than some of the rest of us, and he was so skinny and had a beard I didn't even recognize him.
He was living in somebody's barn without those people knowing.
And he finally got captured and brought in there, so that was quite an experience to see him. So actually, there's 3 of us on a plane. It was in that prison camp. They took the officers to another camp.
So you were in there with your co-pilot, radio operator who was killed, and Herring, who was a waist gunner.
And he also did the arming of the bombs, too, because one of his jobs. But then the tail gunner was injured to the point where they took him to the hospital, so he was pounded.
He broke his leg when he landed.
Landed, and he hurt his leg real bad. So, therefore, he wasn't in a regular prison camp at all. There went through a few bombings. Our planes, the British planes bombed at night. They would come over and set off flares, and that was targets, areas to drop the bombs. We had something dropped in our camp there, and the guys got injured. And it was kind of breathtaking too. But, after we were there, about another 2 weeks, while our forces were kind of running through in different areas by that time. So they had to get us out of that camp.
You probably would have been in what, February of 1945?
Yeah, we're talking about late February now.
Late February, early March.
We were on the road marching for through March and April, most of March and April. So we got last camp on the march while we were, before the march actually started, we were put on boxcars for a short distance, but they always set us parked in the marshalling yards, which we always bombed there, and we got bombed and strafed by our own fighters. Mostly, I remember shells coming into the boxcars and wounding so many of the prisoners.
What happened to those who were wounded? Did they take them to hospitals if they could, or
they took them out, but they were real serious. That was a real scary type of time because we knew how accurate our planes were and the fighters. Shells were really bursting all over.
And at that time they were moving you southward?
Yeah, we were going southward, but they decided that was not the way to go, so they took everybody was healthy out. Well, some of them were wounded a lot more seriously than they had. Just hobbling around, but we were forced to march to the south. Well, I don't know just all where we went, but I suppose we went. I know we went through Nuremberg, and which is shows Nuremberg down there somewhere.
Yeah, everything's written in German. There's Nuremberg right there.
That was
Berlin's here, Nuremberg's.
That's one city we marched through right after they had been bombed the day before. And that's where the civilians were in an uproar, and the guards had to pull the guns and surround us. They put additional guards to take us through the city to protect us so we got through. Okay.
So the German guards were protecting you from the German civilians in Nuremberg. Were they throwing rocks and things?
Yeah, they would throw things. They didn't have guns or anything. They were just throwing things. But anyways, we finally got through there, but the city was pretty well destroyed.
How many days were you on foot to get to Nuremberg?
I don't know. That's probably we was probably marching in for a couple of weeks or so, I suppose.
So they just moved you as far as they could, and you'd camp at night, or?
Yeah, we'd stay in wooded areas at night, out in the open, or we would take over some farmer's barn and sleep in the barn, practice on. Was
there any food available, or?
They didn't have any food at all, just enough to survive on, and that was it. And we were forced to get rid of your waste, bowel movements and all that was a problem too. We were marching, just went along the wayside, did what you had to do, and just kept
a lot of people sick and everything else.
Yeah, a lot of them had diarrhea and all types of things.
Well, how many were in the group that you were being moved?
There was probably about 100 or something like that in the group I was with.
And they were all flyers?
Yeah, we were all flyers. Flying a little low about this time. I remember marching through one village, and kids were out playing, and it's like any kids would be playing along, and all of a sudden some fighters came coming in, strafing this area. Kids, they were just get behind trees or in little ditches, and that's what we did too. We hit the ground and tried to protect ourselves. As soon as the fighter disappeared, the kids got up and started to play again, just like nothing ever happened.
So they were used to being strafed.
Yeah. After walking until I suppose it was about the middle of April, we finally got to Moosburg, Germany. That was 7 prison camps down there.
Yeah, I see it. We'll go back to the map.
That's right.
Moosburg's right here,
right
so
there.
pretty close to Austria.
Yeah, one too far from Austria. There was, we were in about the only area that forces that were all, taking over all this area.
So it says Mooseburg was Stalag 7A. Is what that
Stalag
says.
7A.
Not too far from Czechoslovakia, even.
Yeah.
So that probably took you 2 weeks or so to get down there from up north.
Czechoslovakia was one of the first countries that Hitler took over. Without a fight, he just walks in, takes them over.
Yeah.
38 or 39.
So we're probably in the April of 45.
Yeah, we're in April 45 now. And I mean, in this prison camp, and there's a lot of prisoners in here, right? Because they were all marching from different areas coming to this particular camp, because it was a little larger facility. And there were a few more. Well, a lot of them, we had to sleep outside, mostly open. They had a few little buildings that we would crowd in. But there again, we got straight our own planes. That I don't know why, but maybe it was British. I don't know.
They knew it was a prison.
Yeah, because I can't figure it out. Well, I know what it was. Our air forces were attacked and coming closer. They were throwing shells over the camp to Patton and his forces were overtaking the Germans right about there. That's what all the fighting was for. We were concerned that someone would land in our camp, because that took place for several days.
Did you ever really get word on what was going on, how close allies were?
Well, not really. We just go by new prisoners coming in, and well, I'll go back a little bit to the past. Some prisoner came in and said President Roosevelt had died, and we didn't know that. We thought it was just
Propaganda.
Propaganda. So I guess the guard told us that. I think that's what it was. And, we didn't know that. And, well, actually, you didn't know what was going on when he was a prisoner.
Did any
information on from the new prisoners?
Did any Americans speak German and were able to converse?
I had a buddy of mine who spoke very good German. In fact, he taught German back in the United States school. And so, on a couple occasions, he talked to farmers, and a couple of potatoes.
As you passed through.
Yeah, we passed through as we was marching. And he would carry on a conversation with them, got along just fine. I don't know what happened to him after he got out of prison. I have not seen him again. But I was a buddy of all through the march and everything. It's kind of interesting.
Did he talk to some of the guards?
Yeah. In fact, some of the guards, the last few days of the march, where they even let us look at their guns and things. They didn't even have them loaded. Yeah, because they were, they knew it was about over the war. They didn't want to show any tell to hear anything like that.
So that would be from Nuremberg down to Mooseburg is where they were.
These guards, where they could.
These were just regular German. These weren't SS or anything.
No, they weren't anything like that. They were advisors. But then, well, there were some low-flying planes that came over camp there one day and trying to tell us, they were making maneuvers up there, so we figured that Pat Army perhaps had taken over that area, and wasn't long after we saw tanks coming down into the valley, and one of them came into the camp right over the gate.
Did you see it smash the gate down?
No, it was off a distance from me. I heard it, but I couldn't see it. But I
probably understood
by
what
the time we
was
got
going on.
over there, they were taking the German flag down, putting the American flag up. So that was a pretty happy moment there.
Yeah, what was the reaction of everybody?
Oh, everybody had tears in their face and then down their cheeks, that's for sure. Then after we couldn't get out of there, took a while for them to get, say, 15, 20,000 prisoners out. So I was there another 2 weeks when I got out of there.
What was the date when you were liberated?
That was the 29th of April, and it was probably about the middle of May before I got out of Germany, you know.
What was that day like? I mean, weather-wise and everything.
Well, it was a clear day.
Nice spring day.
A nice spring day. I remember going back to the march, coming down there, we had a problem bathing because I had one shower all the time. I was in Germany.
You were in Germany for...
I wasn't sure if that was going to be a gas shower or what.
From January 14th, you were shot down, and April 29th.
I went into the middle of May before I got out.
Okay.
But we was marching, there was a flowing creek, and the temperature was probably up in the 50s, you know. So a lot of us guys disrobed and we just jumped in the water and cleaned ourselves the best we could. Guards gave us a few minutes to do so. Well, it was a rest period, that's when every once in a while they stopped and let you rest. But anyhow, after Pat took over the camp, some of the fellows just broke through the camp, went on, tried to find food. But every once in a while they would find a hog or a pig or something they'd carry back, and their pots were brewing all kinds of stew and stuff around there. I know I had a little bit, all got real sick.
Did a lot of people get sick from eating
Oh
that
yeah,
stuff?
because they had not had any, food, and then they eat some of this real rich food. And we finally they took us by truck to an airfield there. We flew back to Le Havre, France, and spent a few days there. They kind of examined us a little bit, not real thoroughly, really. It's just a quickie. Put on a ship.
Back at the camp before Pat came in, did the SS were there SS at that camp?
There were a few guards that were, I don't know if they were SS, but they were really true Nazis, some younger guards. And after we were liberated, those guards, they kind of disappeared because the prisoners took care of, so to speak.
Prisoners, but they put up some resistance as Pat came in. For
the other guards, they didn't put up any resistance. They just
gave up.
So these guards, they had killed a few people trying to go over the fence or get too close to the fence. They take pot shots at you.
So a few of those guys disappeared.
Yeah, they disappeared. Some of my, that's what I heard. I didn't actually see any of that take place.
What were conditions like in the camp? You were in that camp for a month?
I wasn't in there too long, 2 weeks maybe.
Well, not when you were in for about 2 weeks.
So
the other 4 months or so you were there, you were in the first camp and then en route through Nuremberg.
So I spent about a third of the time on the route to, the sanitary conditions were not very good in that camp. Of course, food, never did have any food.
If you would have been in there a long time, there probably would have been a lot of disease and so forth.
And one of the camps was at the first camp where we got Red Cross partial through one time, and we had to divide between so many men. It was too much food as far as that. There was, we were even divided and cutting raisins in two. That sort of thing.
How many pounds did you lose from your flyweight?
I probably was down about 140 pounds. When I left, I was about 175 or something.
So you probably lost 30 to 40 pounds in that
4 months. That was about.
From the camp, you went back into France.
Back to Le France, and there, like I said, we were checked over physically to a certain point, and after a few days, we were put on a boat and headed for the United States. It took us 10 days to get back home, and we were about went crazy in that boat trying to, it was crowded anyways. I think I wouldn't be too bad going.
Yeah, 10 days.
Well, there were some of the boats that went the fastest. Then finally, we came into New York Harbor and passed the Statue of Liberty, and that was probably one of the proudest moments.
How did all the guys react when the boat was?
They all, most everybody had tears running down their face. There was a few small boats come out to greet us, a few dancing girls and different things along the way, made you feel proud. So that was the proudest moment to see the old Statue of Liberty.
That would have been in May of 45.
It was about May, I think it was about May the 29th. Everything was on 29th.
So it had been a month after you were liberated, you got back into New York.
At least that long. So I was at the camp for several, about 2 weeks before we got out of camp.
How many people were on that boat when they brought you back?
Oh, I don't have any idea how many.
Large boat?
Oh, it was a pretty good sized boat. I don't have any idea. I remember they gave us a chance to buy, some candy bars and stuff we could get our hands on there. That was quite a treat.
On the boat?
On the boat, yeah.
So they fed you and...
They fed us a little bit on the boat. I can remember those old Hershey bars I bought. Ate about 50 of them, I think, I was on that boat 10 days.
What happened when you got to New York then? They docked you and what did you do then?
Our area where they found out who we were, and where they wanted to send us. It didn't take that long. From that point, I ended up down at Miami Beach again.
Well, by train, you went from New York to Miami?
On the train. I think I had a furlough coming, but I'm not sure whether it was before I went to Miami but anyhow, they let me come home for 2 or 3 weeks furlough.
Back to Fort Wayne?
Yeah, to Fort Wayne. Then I think I went to Miami and...
Did your mother and father know that you were... that you were reported missing in action? Did they know you were a prisoner?
They didn't. I don't think they knew. I had sent them a couple cards, but the cards didn't arrive until after I got home.
So they didn't know if you were alive or not until you walked up?
So it was a big shock when I walked up. I saw me for the first time with my brother, Wayne. He was over in the South Pacific about that time, so they had both of us boys gone, so it was a pretty big shock. But anyhow, I went to Miami, and then I thought I'd get discharged down there, but they sent me over to San Antonio from there.
Well, that's when you were in San Antonio.
Yeah. So I spent about 2 weeks in San Antonio, and finally got discharged. It was an airfield there.
What did you do there? Just kill time, basically?
I went to town trying to chase the girls a little bit, but most of them were Mexican.
Didn't have much luck, so
they had service clubs there. We spent some time there, and you know, they'd have dancing partners for you and that type of thing.
Is there anything they did to help you readjust back to normal life, or talk to you about
they just discharged us and said, get the heck out.
So when were you finally discharged then?
29th of October.
So
Everything's on the 29th.
you got back to New York on about May 29th, and you were in until October of 45.
Of course, I'd been home for 2 or 3 weeks, you know.
That just kind of finished out your
Yeah.
period, or what, a tour, or whatever they called it.
So I actually didn't spend that much time in the service, but a few things did happen to me while I was in there.
Well, you were in for
About 27 months or so, 28 months.
that's quite a while.
But actually, I was only overseas about 7 or 8 months. Most of it was prison camp. Middle of January on until the middle of May. Prior to that, well, I said I flew the missions up to October, September. So, just about completes the story. There's a few things I probably missed. But
There's one thing let's touch on for a second. There are 2 guys were killed in the battle. One was killed trying to escape prison, and the other one was killed in what situation?
I'm not sure how he was killed, but I think he also lost his life trying to escape. I didn't know all the details about Bowman. I think that was Bowman. That was his life.
That he was trying to escape to Austria?
He was an officer, so he was in a different camp.
Okay, so you don't know all
I
the
don't
details.
even know where he was located.
But as far as you know, the rest of the people survived, and you've been in contact with several.
Been in contact with 3 of them. My pilot, I was only talked to him once really on the phone, and Jack Palmer, why have a bomb group reunion every year, so we see each other when we go to that.
He's in Seattle.
Yeah, he lives in Seattle, and Hope Herring, it was one from Kentucky. He was a waist gutters, right? He was a good friend.
He was the one who lived in the barn.
Yeah, he's the one who lived in the barn and got the beard, long beard and everything that month or so. He passed away last year, so it was just one of them I have contact with now. It's Jack Palmer.
Do you know any details on the B-17 after everybody jumped?
I have no idea. I had different reports that the plane actually hit the ground without exploding, but it's hard for me to believe it did with the gas fires, wing fires and everything. I saw so many planes explode with just one wing of fire.
Yeah, they would just, you'd see a fire.
It would just explode and that'd be it.
In those planes, did you see parachutists get out?
Oh yeah, you'd see parachutists come down, but you weren't sure what planes they got out of or anything.
You might see a couple come out and then a plane explode.
Yeah, something like that. I'd say about half of them survived that were shot down that day in our mission. I'd say it'd be 100 men, I'd say 50 survived. That was one of the lucky ones. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here today.
Well, that completes the story of Robert Putt, World War II experiences in some detail. There are a couple of photographs we might show you of what he looked like when he was in the service, and we do have a couple medals we're going to show. See him in his flight suit there. And that's how he looked when he was in the Air Corps, about 20 years old. We've got a couple medals and things from the Dad's experiences. I'll let you tell what it is.
This is a little book. I kept track of the days and some of the people I met over there in prison camp, so I got We got each day marked off as there's a prisoner there. Several days you can see. You've got the black and the names of quite a few of the people that I met some from Canada and England.
Were there some Africans there too?
There were one group of Africans there. They were the big, tall type. I can't describe them, but they were big. So I know that they couldn't speak English.
What's that?
This was a POW medal here. We got just a few years ago, and then I had the Purple Heart, which is one I got from wounds I had. And I have several other medals, but they were just destroyed in a fire. And an air medal and some other cluster medals.
It says for military merit, Robert J. Putt on the back of the Purple Heart.
It's not all I have to show right now that I have left. This has my name on it too.
Awarded to Robert J. Putt for honorable service while prisoner of war, United States of America.
Yeah. Well, that's about it as far as the story of my little 2.5 years of my fun days, huh?